Hello. How is everyone? Good. Yeah, it's good to see you all. So raise your hand if organization is your strong suit. Okay. Okay, raise your hand if it's not. My hand is up. I should put 2 hands up. Because organization, it'd be great if I could say the word, is not my strong suit. But that was really fun. Ooh, man, I'm going to have fun with this. But God will give you the gifts you need when it comes to certain things. So when I said I was teaching on organization, my whole family just thought it was hilarious because I am not organized. But somehow last semester when I came into campus ministry at AACC, I just kind of took everything, all the papers, I went through all the CMI papers, everything we had previously had for our club, and I just stared at it all, and I was like, we're going to start from scratch, and we're going to organize it all, we're going to get it all lined up, and we're going to go from the bottom up. And somehow it worked. So that was great. But God, he really will, because honestly, even my regular schoolwork, I'm just a mess with it all. And so only in campus ministry, it seems to be one of my main places where organization is actually a strength for me. And so it might seem intimidating at first to start a club, to plan your Bible studies, to plan everything, but it really will come together and happen. So I started with the scripture. If you have your papers, we can read it from that. It's in the Amplified. 1 Corinthians 12, 27 to 31. Now you collectively are Christ's body, and individually you are members of it, each with his own special purpose and function. So God has appointed and placed in the church for his own use, first apostles, chosen by Christ, second prophets, those who foretell the future, those who speak a new message from God to the people, third teachers, then those who work miracles, then those with the gifts of healings, the helpers, the administrators, and speakers in various kinds of unknown tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Do all have gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly desire and strive for the greater gifts, if acquiring them is going to be your goal. And yet I will show you a still more excellent way, one of the choicest graces and highest of them all, unselfish love. My mom, when Mike first asked me to teach on organization, I as well laughed. But I remembered my mom teaches a lot on what's called the ministry of helps. And it's a legit ministry in the church. And so that's why it's highlighted the helpers, the administrators, because while organization is needed in planning and preparation and execution, it's also biblical. And so in the tedious times when you're overwhelmed with everything you're organizing, you can remember and fall back on, okay, this isn't just happening just because. It's actually, I'm in the will of God. I'm doing something biblical for my club. And so it's one of the building blocks of campus ministry. And we're going to talk later about structure, about prayer, tons of other things. But from the beginning, you have to organize each step. And so to be able to properly execute your prayer walks, to properly execute Bible studies, to properly track Bible studies, you have to have it all organized and prepared. So these are a few things they're not necessarily in any order, but we'll go through them because, yeah. So number 1, for me personally, is reminder apps. If you have an iPhone, you automatically have the reminder app, and that's the main one I use. And I've even heard people who are organized all the time talk about them. But for me, I set a reminder for everything because I will forget if I don't. So I'll set a reminder, text so-and-so what songs we're playing. I'll text so-and-so to bring food, text this, text that. Set a reminder, send out the newsletter today. And then if I don't send it out by then, I'll set another reminder, send out the newsletter today. And then I'll set one in all caps because all caps usually gets you to actually send out the newsletter. So number 1 for me is reminder apps because for all of these things that you're using, you have to make sure you actually keep up with them and do them. I also use colored pens, so I like to organize everything in color, and I'll have a color for one person, and every time I write their name is in color. Those are just little things I use personally. And then Excel is your second best friend because it's extremely important to track your growth. Not everything, like, yes, we want big numbers. It's not our focus. Our focus is in connecting with people. But it's very important to track your numbers and to track your growth, especially if you're a brand new campus ministry, to see who you're connecting with. So I track contacts, every contacts. If you use a different word processor or spreadsheet, then that's cool. So I have a table specifically for contacts, name, number, email, whatever. But then along with that, I have extras with, do they want a Bible study? And then who am I going to assign to the Bible study? And then did they actually follow up and give them a Bible study? And all of these different things to track the information that you have. I track follow-up, Bible studies. I have a whole separate calendar or table for specifically Bible studies. Because for us, we use various curriculums for Bible studies. There's a lot of different great options, but I like to see who's using what. And so I'll put in, like, who taught the Bible study, what they taught, who they were with, are they following up? And then if they did do a follow-up Bible study, I'll follow up with that one as well. Because it's very important to see, like, what is working and what isn't. Yeah, and attendance, weekly attendance. That's another one that's really important to track because you see who's in your group is coming, what new people are coming, what new people came and then dropped off after a few weeks, and then you can send them a text. Set a reminder to send them a text and connect with them again. Another thing we use is newsletters. There's, for ACC, it's called MailChimp.com. It's super easy to use, and they have a lot of templates where you just go and plug in your information. I send ours out usually at the beginning of the week. I try my best to. But newsletters are great because you have some people who really do check their email for a lot of stuff. And so that's awesome because you can send out like, hey, we have campus ministry this week. Hey, we have a special event in church this week. Hey, we miss you. Come see us. Okay. I went out for summer with like this dog at the pool, and I felt really cool. But I don't really know if anyone paid attention to it. But I told everyone we missed them, so maybe they felt the love from the dog at the pool. Yay. So there's a lot of different free newsletter websites and stuff, but we use MailChimp. It's really easy, especially for if we're scheduling, like if we have a special event, like last semester for the Great Awakening, I had to send out to let our whole group know, like, we're meeting at ACC here. And I had a few people who I don't, like, not in our church group, but were guests and stuff that come to our campus ministry. And they texted me and they were like, okay, wait, so where exactly? And I was like, the newsletter really does work. Like, these people really do read it. This is awesome. So I do recommend newsletters for keeping up with people. Number 4, connections in the student engagement office. If you don't know what student engagement is, well, you will very soon if you are establishing a club. And I guess they might have other names. At ACC, it's called student engagement. And they're the office that's over all of the clubs, all of the activities, everything. So you work with them a lot, just from basic stuff like scheduling your room each week to special events where you're going to schedule. Like we had an event where we used like a sound system, so we had to schedule with that. And then if you're getting you're funded by the campus, then you work with them for reimbursements, for getting money. And it's very important to have a good relationship with who you're working with. We have a guy at ACC who is no longer there. His name was Steve. And at first, this was my first semester like helping, and I didn't know anything about how to do anything. And so, like, I sent in a submission, and I was like, I would like $200 to buy stuff for X, Y, and Z. And it was like, declined. And I was like, that's weird. You know, they granted us this money with our budget. I'll submit it again. I would like $200 cash. Declined. And I was like, okay, I don't know what money we're going to use for this. And so we went and talked to Steve one-on-one, and he was like, you can't just ask for $200. And I was like, you know what? I really didn't think about that. That is a really good point. Like, why would they just give me $200? Because what if I didn't actually spend it on my club? So, that was good to know. Number one, you probably can't just ask for $200 cash. Most likely won't give it to you. So he explained to me the process of, well, you have to submit for this, you have to do that, and the order of how to actually get the money, because they will actually give you the 200 if you do it right. And we also, we had a situation where our group got too big for where we were meeting. Bummer. I was like, this is amazing. Like, yes, okay. But they made us change our room. So that wasn't very fun. And we technically had the area scheduled for the rest of the semester. So it should have been ours. But we have a good relationship with Steve, and so he was like, I'm really sorry to tell you, you'll still be off the cafeteria, but, like, you can't meet where you were before. And it wasn't like this super, like, he was like, we don't do this regularly. I'm really sorry we have to do this and all this stuff. And it could have been, like, really bad. And, I mean, we looked at the bright side, which was that the school took notice of the fact we were growing, and that was amazing. But we also had to move rooms and stuff. But because we had a good relationship with Steve and with other people, there's a lady who works at ACC, Chris, and Mike, she's been there since Mike was there, which was like 8 years ago, sometime a while ago. And like she has a good connection with our club, and especially if you're a brand new club, make sure you show an effort of kindness and you're really polite with the people you're working with, because they don't always get students like that. And I'm trying to make sure, like, thank you so much for all you do for student engagement. Thank you for being willing to talk to me about our club. Thank you for being willing to explain in detail, because I usually need explanation in detail of what we're doing and how it works and stuff. So I really, really recommend make a good connection in student engagement, because it will benefit you in the long run. So you can flip to the back. Yay. The next order of business is create a group chat that your members will read. We have WhatsApp for a whole youth group, and so then like they'll send that out for like important stuff. And so in WhatsApp we made a group for just AACC. And WhatsApp is awesome because you can slide and see who's actually read your text. And so I just love it when I say like, respond to me, and then I slide and everyone has read it, but no one has responded. Isn't that awesome? So then I'm like, I can see that you read this. I know you read this. Why aren't you responding? And so then I've started using stuff in all bold, all caps and bold. That actually works. Not even kidding. I was so impressed. I was like, you people do read this when it's all caps and bold. Okay. So I'll use WhatsApp for like the whole group, and I'll send out information like we're doing this, we're doing that, whatever. It's a pretty good way. There's a lot of other free texting. Mike uses GroupMe, other stuff like that. But I also, if it's something more specific, like if I'm only texting like Haley and Kirby and Elizabeth, I have a text where it's like specific experience girls, yay, and I put in a little emoji because those make me happy. So then I'll send them stuff specifically, or like the guys, and more specific information that I want to make sure you really, really read this, because I know for a fact you're reading your text messages. You might have WhatsApp muted, but odds are you don't have your text muted. And if you do, just kidding. So then next, we have delegation. This one is really hard for me because I might not be very organized, but in sometimes I can be like really OCD and like really, really extra, and everything has to be perfect. Dylan, stop talking. Okay? Everything has to be perfect. And so delegation comes very hard because it's like, I can do all of these things at once. Like, who needs sleep? I have coffee. And odds are they probably still won't turn out perfect if I do them all myself. So delegation is very important, and especially as a leader, you don't really realize it, but even small things like, hey, can you bring snacks this week? Can you bring drinks? Can you plan games? Like stuff like that, you're actually sharing the weight and the burden of the whole meeting, and you're not carrying it yourself. And if you are a member and your leader is saying, hey, can you bring this? It's actually a blessing because they're being willing to share, so you need to take it as a blessing and being like, of course I would love to. Like, I can bring extra snacks. You want me to make homemade desserts? Oh, I love that. When people offer, I'm like, can you bring a dessert? Would you like it homemade? Yes. Yes, I would love it homemade. Thank you. Yes. So also taking initiative is very good too, like homemade desserts. That's obviously a big deal to me. Man, I didn't realize that. But taking initiative, if you send a text, before they even send their text, before their reminder went off, you set a reminder to beat their reminder and text them and say, hey, can I bring snacks? So this obviously, if you have a smaller group, this is harder and it's not as big of a deal, especially if it's like 2 or 3 of you and you're all 3 the leaders, then most likely you have already divided the spoils. But if not, then I do recommend that. And so it's just really good to share the load and to delegate to each other. So there's that. And then next, rigid in principle, flexible in application. This is another one that is a lot of fun. Yeah, because don't you love planning things perfectly and then everything falling apart? That's my favorite thing ever. That really, yes, I'm like, yes, Jesus, I love that. Thank you. Character building, who needs that? So I do recommend planning your stuff. Last semester, I tried to plan out every week, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And it worked for most of the weeks, but then every once in a while there was a curveball and it was like, okay, so this week we're changing everything. Last semester we started out at the beginning and we had piano and cajon and guitar, and then I would sing, and it was like we were bringing all this stuff every week and it sounded great, but it just wasn't working that well. So we gradually cut back. And so you have to be flexible with how everything goes, because you really never know what will happen. And especially starting out, you really don't know, because student engagement could decide that they don't want you to meet there. And you're like, this is really great. We had a situation last semester, and we had the room scheduled for our special event, and we promoted our big special event, and it was awesome, okay? And so we get there that day, and they're like, no, you're scheduled for 3 hours later than you thought. And we're like, no, we're scheduled for 4:30, not 7. We have all of our people here right now, and you want us to wait 3 hours before we do anything. And they're like, I think you could go, just go find a random room. I think the cab room is open. And so it's this whole lounge area. And so we take and it was one of our biggest groups. We had 20-something, 25 maybe? I don't know. It was awesome. And so then we all go and we huddle in this small room, and it was still really great. And I think we had someone get the Holy Ghost. Maybe not. They were really close. But we made great connections. And so even in those times when you're thrown a curveball, sometimes really positive stuff comes out of it. And it ended up being a whole lot more of an intimate atmosphere. And so you could really feel the presence of God strongly, and it was just really powerful. And so there is a bright side, but you do have to be prepared when crazy things happen. So, and then the last one, which is, I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but it's extremely important. And so accountability is extremely important. It's very important biblically, because you're supposed to be accountable to your leaders. And even as a leader, you have a level of accountability with the people who are below you. And so, for me and Dylan, we're mainly the leaders. In a way, we're accountable to the people under us, but we're accountable to Mike to say, here's our numbers for the week. This is what we have for the week. And then the people below me are supposed to say, this is what I did today. This is what I did this week. Here's your, whoops. And especially, Mike's going to be talking later about really encouraging Bible studies and stuff. And accountability is something that, with a change in structure out of just one big meeting and really focusing on Bible studies, accountability is very important. It's key to keeping things flowing properly, to have everything working the way it's supposed to be working. Yes, especially with Bible studies, it's a very big deal. But in the end, all of these are my tips and what have worked for me, but you need to find what works for you. So maybe you don't need a reminders app like I do, but you need colored pens, because I need those as well. Those are a blast. And you just kind of have to find your flow and go with it for that semester. and stay flexible with how things come and just go with the flow. So, I'm technically done. Are we done?